Congratulations, graduates. We did it. It wasn't easy. It was hard in the typical ways. Every all-nighter in college library and trying desperately to learn just enough Old English to pass 241 and having to watch us lose the Rose Bowl again. And our college experience was hard in some uniquely tragic ways. We spent our 4 or 5 years of college in the midst of one of the most divisive political cycles our nation has seen in decades. We see constantly the violent racism that plagues our community. Mass shootings have become so frequent and so fatal. And almost 3 semesters of our Wisconsin experience have been spent in a global pandemic. We've watched COVID take our junior year, our senior year, and well over 500,000 lives in the United States alone. I have never been more proud of myself, as well as my peers, for the massive accomplishment that is finishing college in the midst of all of this. But also, we know that this adversity hasn't just been during college. We have felt so much suffering and seen so much death in our first third of life. Our generation doesn't know what it's like to not be grieving or in fear. I don't remember a life where I wasn't heaving a constant sigh of lament for our world and our community. We, English majors, know how to tell the stories the world needs to hear to combat that suffering. And we will continue to use what we have learned here to observe, analyze, and write that groundbreaking work, because we didn't only watch hardship. We watched the admirable ways people responded to it. We watched powerful survivors like Allie Raisman and Dr. Blasey Ford challenge institutional abuse with their stories. We watched the loved ones of far too many Black and brown people murdered by police find strength to be the voices behind a movement. Our Go Big Read book this year was all about the survivors of the school shooting in Parkland and how the stories of those students educate and advocate for change. We continue to hear the painful stories of medical professionals having to care for COVID-19 patients. Slowly but surely shift into hopeful stories of those same doctors and nurses being able to give vaccines. UW-Madison was my first choice for college. I wanted nothing more than to be a Badger. And though it didn't get to be everything I imagined, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it's the people that I have met in my time here. The English majors that will go on to share their stories that advocate for justice, that help me maintain hope. Not just toxic optimism, but real, tangible hope amidst the chaos. Like my friend who's taking his English degree onto law school. Well, he will work to put out the wildfires of injustice in our system. Or the authors that will write the plays, poems, and novels that shake the nation and make us critically question the way things are. And the students that will go on to be teachers, managing their classrooms with compassion and equity to raise the next generation of great leaders. I remind myself often that comedian and TV show writer John Mulaney majored in English. If you go on to make people laugh like him, you will have made the world a little happier place. It sounds cliche, but make one person smile and you're doing so much in that moment. I aspire to live in a world where we see a lot less death, where joy doesn't feel like a temporary placeholder between tragedies, where we are not just barely surviving, but also thriving. That work, class of 2021, continues with us, and there is a lot of it to do, but we do not do this work alone. We have been so supported by professors, TAs, and advisors, along with friends and families to get here. And here we are, with all that we have learned and accomplished, equipped for making equitable and sustainable change toward a world that values people over profit. We are ready. Congrats, Badgers. We did it. Be courageous and persevering in the stories you live and tell. Thank you.
Hello, fellow English majors. We made it. Today marks the end of our careers as undergraduate English majors at UW-Madison. Thank you to all the professors, advisors, TAs, writing fellows, house fellows, parents, and so many others who have been there for us these past years. We certainly would not be sitting at home on our laptops today without you. Well, maybe, but we certainly would not be listening to this. Being an English major is not always something we brag about. We mostly spend our days reading books, writing about books, or doing whatever the heck it is linguistic track students do. Some people think that our major is easy, themselves having never written a 12-page comparative essay on the works of Friedrich Nietzsche and Thomas Mann, or taken a course in Old English. We are also all familiar with the inevitable question that comes up at family gatherings. Would you like fries with that degree? Some of us might also know John Mulaney's immortal joke that he spent $120,000, yes, $120,000 to study a language he already speaks. Yet, even with all the commentary, I've always been proud to be an English major, especially at UW-Madison. Before the pandemic, Helen C. White was a home away from home. I spent many hours in the undergraduate English lounge, drinking tea and talking to friends instead of doing homework. We also all know of the crowded elevators at Helen C. White and the dizzying prospect of navigating Moss Humanities. Yet, upon arrival at our lectures, discussions, and workshops, we all knew it was well worth the hassle. My favorite part about being an English major on the literature track was all the different directions people chose to focus with the major. There are always the medieval studies students who took as many courses with Zweck, Foys, and Cooper as possible. They read Beowulf for fun and had half of the Canterbury Tales memorized in Middle English to show off their skills at parties. Then there were the Shakespeare stands. They all had a favorite play and a random sonnet memorized in case they ever needed to woo someone in early modern English. Additionally, there were the modernists, like myself, who enjoyed reading the longest books we could find and then complaining about the lengths of the books. Then there were the students who also studied contemporary English literature. They read nonstop during the week and were activists on the weekends. There are so many other foci I could mention, but that just speaks to the diversity of thought within the major. Apart from literature, there is also those who are on the creative writing track, the future authors and poets of the world. They were all working on a screenplay or a novel that would redefine the human experience. From what my friends on the track tell me, they all attended creative writing workshops where they spent hours feeling intimidated by one another. Of course, it is easy to write them off as idealistic, but they were the heart of the major. I have no doubt that among those graduating today, we will be reading many of their writings in the future. I also want to give a shout out to all the linguistic track students and all their foci, all the future sociolinguists, dialectologists, psycholinguists, computational linguists, historical comparative linguists, and of course, everyone's favorite, the applied linguists. And yes, I Googled all of that because I have no idea. There is no one experience as an English major at UW-Madison. Many of us were double majors with other humanities departments, while still others doubled with STEM fields. However, all of us shared a common love for words, even with the knowledge of their limitations. We strive to use words in new ways to create better futures. Although I am going to miss being an English major at UW-Madison, I'll always be an English major at heart. Through my love of language and literature, I've lived 1,000 lives, reading the words of people from all different times, places, and experiences. So now, on this day of celebration, I encourage everyone to never stop carrying their passion that brought them here today. Keep on reading, writing, and thinking. The world needs English majors now more than ever.